Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moy Style podcast. Today we have Trent Mongero with some of you guys may know him from Winning Baseball or Trosky Mongero Elite Infield Camps. And I've been following him for a long, long time. And him and Nate Trosky, these guys have been putting out some great content, and definitely definitely recommend their infield camps. Some of the people that have gone through their camps, they got nothing but great things to say about their camps, and I really appreciate you, Trent, for taking the time today to be on. How about we get started with you introducing yourself, just in case some people may not know you yet, and then we'll jump in with a question.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'm not real comfortable introducing myself. A little bit awkward, but yeah, basically 29-year head high school baseball coach, high school level by choice, former professional player, Braves, played Division I shortstop at UNC Wilmington. Been doing infield play for over 30 years as kind of my specialty content area. And then I retired, I don't know, about 3 years ago now, and been full-time with Nate on the road, either doing camps by myself or, with Nate, Trosky Mongero. So that's pretty much it. I'm helping right now at a small Christian school in Wilmington, North Carolina as an assistant. So I've kind of reverted back to my very first days of getting involved in coaching by being an assistant, but work for an awesome head coach. And that gives me the opportunity still to get out and do these camps. So it's a win-win.
No, that's pretty awesome. Now, so like the really the first question I got for you, it's if you have a player for the first time, so what would you focus on? Would you focus more on glove work, footwork, posture? What would you focus on the most? Or is it more like what he needs or she needs?
Yeah. So, to me, coaching is teaching and teaching is coaching. And you have to assess where the student is, whether it's an athletic student or an academic student. And so typically I like to watch and observe a little bit first before just jumping in and working on things with people, because, where I choose to jump in and work, they may be totally past that. And, so I like to watch them play catch for a little bit and then maybe hit them a few ground balls or row them some ground balls. And then very quickly I can assess some deficiencies or strengths. And, at that point, I'm going to devise my workload and I'm going to chunk it. I'm going to make sure that we're not overwhelming somebody. But there's usually an element, though, Moy, of fielding as well as throwing that goes into it, because obviously those are the two pieces that play in the two tools of the five physical tools that, relate to fielding. So.
Right. No, I like that, especially because you don't want to overwhelm the kid right off the bat. Now, so what do you think is this the main topic of this podcast? What do you think separates the elite infielders from the average infielders?
How much time do you got?
Yeah.
A lot of things. The mental side is a big piece, but that's more, on the advanced level. Typically, the things we look at are right feet, hands, actions, fluidity, how athletic they are, how is their throwing actions, can they throw on the run? I mean, the things that separate the elite are really, they do simple better. They do all of the things better. And once you have the physical tools, Moy, at that point, it's definitely the mental side. Being able to handle adversity, being able to be in the moment, things that we talk about all the time, and not just talk about, but give them solutions, ways to actually get better at them. And I think that is key. Most people understand that there's a mental game involved with baseball, whether it be offense or defense, but very few actually give them what I consider applicable tools that don't overwhelm, the players. And, again, you got to determine what players can handle. And, if they're having trouble being consistent with simple drills, they're probably not ready for very complex mental game yet. You really got to start to build the process, and then you can start putting those things in as well. They kind of go hand in hand. So it's not like one and then the other. But, if you don't have basic physical tools, getting into a deep mental game is probably not they're not ready for that either, I would say. But so again, assess. But the things that separate are, you know, doing simple better and being athletic. And, you know, as you know, from being an infield guy yourself, you know, stealing athleticism, I think we've been so guilty for that for so long. 30
Right.
years ago, you know, everything was in a box, everything was steps. And uh, actually, a lot of the things that we used to teach, you know, are actually more myths now. They're not real truths. They're not. And so, anyways, that's kind of my take on it. And we can get in depth on any of those things, you know, that you want to get in depth on. So.
Right, and that's one of the things that I really like about you guys because I grew up in Venezuela, and this stuff that they would teach us, it wasn't so much like breaking it down step by step, step by step. It was more of being smooth, dancing with the ball basically. But I feel like some coaches, and I've noticed that too, like some infielders turn into like robots, and
Yeah.
so they don't have fluidity, like they don't have freedom to play the game. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now, if you have a high school player that really's got aspirations to play, college baseball or professional baseball, what should they focus on when it comes to fielding?
Wow. Well, I mean, if you're going to play it, so what we tell people all the time is, I ask people, do you want to play in college? And, at the camps,
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of the hands go up. And
Right.
how many of you want to play professionally? The hands go up. And, so we start to try to paint a picture. Navigation is a big deal. If you want to get somewhere, you got to know how to get there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I first want them to understand what they're up against. And I don't say any of it, Moy, to try to scare them or deter them, but just say, hey, what are you facing right here when you set these goals? And once you realize what you're facing, again, your workload will start to match if it truly is a goal, not just a wish or a dream. And so first question I asked right off the bat is, how many Division I programs are there that have baseball in the country? And none of them have any idea, and it varies from year to year by a few, because some add, some drop, but it's about 299. So there's 299 Division I shortstops in America, starting shortstops in America, and they all want to be, the hands go up. They want to start as freshmen at the D1 level. So once you understand that there's basically 299 Division I shortstops and 30 professional shortstops in the country, and there's 7 to 8 billion human beings on the planet, you got work to do, right? You got serious work to do. And then I help them understand, like I paint this picture. I say, if you play up 1 year when you're younger and travel ball, is that pretty good? They shake their hands. Yeah. Their heads. Yeah. And I say, what about 2 years? You play up 2 age groups. You pretty good? Yeah. Well, how many age groups are in college right now, are making up college rosters? 6. 2017s, 18s, 19s, 20s, 21s, and 22s. That's 6. So you got 6 classes of graduates, primarily across the United States of America. When you're talking about collegiate, there are guys from other countries, but primarily Americans. And you got 6 classes of graduates fighting for those 299 starting spots. So once you realize that, now that paints a clear picture. Okay, when you raise your hand and state those goals, the workload's got to match. So that is step number 1. Then they need to understand what the 5 physical tools are. Most of them don't even understand how they're graded. Like, how are you graded by scouts? What are college coaches looking for? There's a physical piece, there's a mental makeup piece, there's a baseball IQ, situational awareness piece, there's a character, piece to make the complete player. And those are the people that are recruited the most. So it's not just physical tools that we're addressing, which obviously you got to master the physical first. But I shouldn't even say first, because at the same time you got to be developing the other pieces, the mental makeup pieces. But without the physical tools, you can have all the makeup in the world, and you're not going to play at the next level. So the physical is probably the primary focus initially, creating the patterns, the hand patterns, the feet patterns, the arm slot patterns that allow people to be able to play like you say, very athletically and fluidly, and dance with the ball with confidence. And, and then from there, we address the mental side, the sixth tool, as Nate likes to call it, and, how you handle adversity and everything that goes along with that. So there's a lot to it, right? But to me, it's kind of like a painting, or let's just say a puzzle. Let's just say it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, and everything that you do, whether it's jumping rope or, hand skills activities, whatever it might be, are all little pieces of those puzzles. Double play, feeds and pivots, slow rollers, backhands, forehands, everything is a piece. And then the mental makeup. And then once you get all the pieces together, you can see the beautiful picture. And now you start to become one of those guys that they might consider to be the 299. If you're talking about the Division I level, and I'm not dissing on D2, D3, JUCO, NAI.
Right.
Those are all fantastic options for many players.
Right. It's just that everybody wants to play D1, so that's why. Excuse me. So when it comes to the workload, I know you mentioned that earlier. When do you think they should start really getting pretty serious about, taking their game to the next level? Should it be before high school, or once they get to high school? When do you think?
All right. Well, that's a very individualized, thing. I think person to person, I don't encourage specialization really ever. But if you're going to specialize, certainly I feel like high school is when you have to start making some decisions. Right. I think you should expose yourself to as many sports that you're interested in when you're younger. I'll use Tabor, my son, as an example. He had no interest in playing football. I think we put him in football when he was about 9, and he graduated high school at 138 pounds. So I don't know what he weighed when he was 9, but they put him on the offensive line. His football career was short at that point, but he didn't have really any interest. He played basketball through middle school, and then he really knew that his love and his passion was baseball. And then in high school, he was unbelievably committed. And I think we make a mistake. Again, very individualized. You're going to find always exceptions to every rule. So you're going to find that kid who specializes in baseball from the time he's born, and he doesn't burn out, and all that, and everything works out fine and dandy for him. But, most players, they need to experience other things, and then they hone in they hone in right around 8th, 9th grade. The real serious ones, Moy, you hear the examples of professional athletes. They always throw out professional athletes as guys that were like 3 sports stars. Well, go figure, right? I mean, you're talking about freaks in a good sense of the word. Right. They can step in and out of every sport and be the dude. And then what about the kid that's barely hanging on in a good high school baseball program that wants to play 3 sports, and he's really not that good of an athlete? Is he going to be able to just, still play all 3 and be able to be a contributor if baseball is his love, and he's spreading himself too thin? So it's very, very individualized. And I think we make a big mistake making blanket statements when it comes to players. But I do think you're pretty smart as an adult, if you're being a parent, encouraging your child to play other sports before high school.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like you said before, you don't want the kid to burn out so quick. But which back home, I always tell the kids the same thing. Like back home is different because we're trying to get out of the country. We're trying to make a better living. But here you have so many opportunities. And I think the main issue here is that kids play so many games in one weekend. You got kids that are playing, 6, 7 games sometimes in a weekend. So that's where the burnout comes from. And to me, and obviously not playing all the sports makes it even worse sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, we can touch on that, and parents need to hear it, and they probably don't hear it enough, that, you should be practicing significantly more than you're playing games when you're younger.
Right.
And I saw it even at the high school level when the guys were playing summer ball and they weren't practicing on a regular basis, the skill sets declined. Like, they just declined over the summer. Now the dudes still stay the dudes, but you've got to get your work in, you've got to get your process taken care of. And if you have goals to play at the next level, just playing games is not enough. You can't be exposed to everything that you need to be exposed to playing games. Is it important? Yeah, you got to play games too, right? You got to be challenged. You got to see live pitching. You got to play under pressure scenarios that we can't create and practice as much as we try to. So games are important, but just playing games and, like you say, overloading weekends, and guys aren't preparing their bodies for the workloads of the weekend, especially the pitchers. That's like getting in a weight room. That's my analogy of being really out of shape, jumping in a weight room and lifting like you are in the best shape of your life. You're probably going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt.
Right.
So when a guy does not prepare, and then he gets into a weekend scenario, and then he's trying to compete at his best, and his body's not prepared for the workload, it's that's a bad mix, and something bad's likely going to happen, injury or what have you.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I get parents sometimes that reach out to me and they're like, well, my kids, it can't hit. He's having a hard time on the plate, or he's having awful games on the infield. But excuse me, this cough won't go away. But
it's okay.
But I get a little frustrated, because I always I try to use myself as an example, not because I'm the greatest thing ever. It's just because I remember back home, we spent so much time on practice just because we wanted to perfect basically our game. And here they're just trying to wing it and try to make up just by playing another game and just hoping for the best. And they don't ever work on getting ready. They just kind of see what happens in the next at bat and next game. So that's where I get a little frustrated. So now when it comes to infielders gaining ground, so how does an infielder gain ground? Because I hear a lot of infielders, they want to gain ground, they want to be able to get to more balls. So how can they accomplish that?
Well, I mean, it's a delicate balance, because every ground ball is different, and there's going to be some ground balls hit at you that you can't gain ground. They're coming 108 miles an hour at you, and you might have to, lose ground. You may have to drop step in order to handle a certain hop. You're not going to be able. But when we're teaching, we always imagine the balls are taking 3-4 hops, and you got time to come get it. And of course, if that's the case, that's exactly what you want to do. There's numerous ways to work on that. To me, and I've been doing this for years and years. I'm not saying I invented it, but I probably heard it 25 years ago to put players on a clock. Put them on a clock, because what you find out when you put players on a clock, and we know the major league average, 4.3 seconds from home to first for a righty, 4.2 for a lefty. My high school guys are working 4 seconds and under. Every single play there is, always. And so basically you start to figure out the internal clock elements when you start putting people on simply just putting them on a stopwatch. They start to realize, maybe I need to come get that one a little bit more. Maybe when I range to my right this far, I don't have time to take an extra step. Maybe, my arm strength, means I got to come get this ball just a little bit more, or I want to save my arm. If I'm playing 162, 163 games in the regular season as a professional, including spring training, including postseason, I have to do things a little bit different. So the techniques involved, I just think the focus of this conversation right here, I would just say, you have to understand the internal clock piece. You got to understand the momentum piece. Anytime that you can field a ball and create direction and momentum towards your target, it's going to take stress off your throwing arm. So when you have time and you come get a ball, I would suggest that you do. Now, do you want to run through and play everything off to the side? I think everybody's a little bit different. I think the more you can get set up and be athletic, and not have to make easy plays hard. I talk to college coaches all the time, and they're very, very frustrated because you got players that, look really good. They're very athletic and they make super plays. But when it comes to fielding a routine ground ball and getting it out, a lot of times they're making that play more difficult than it has to be. So, typically to rein a player in is this: I'm going to give them all the freedom that they can possibly have. And then if they can't be consistent within the realm of what a play requires, then I'm going to start to bring the reins in a little bit on them. You know what I mean? And if I got a guy that can be unbelievably athletic and make every play on the run, and he's a 940 to 960 fielder from a percentage standpoint, and he throws accurately, probably not messing with that guy a whole lot, because you rein him in, you steal his ability to just play free, and now he's probably going to make more mistakes. So again, that's all part of the assessment, and to me, that's part of growing up. But I use this example. Nate uses this example as well. When you're learning something like an instrument, you have to play by the rules to a degree. You have to learn the notes and the chords, and you learn how to play. And then once you learn how to play, then you start to create a little freedom, your own style within the realm of music. Say it's playing a guitar. Typically, we don't give someone a guitar and say, here, just go figure it out, and have all sorts of freedom. There's basic rules, and how to read hops, short hops, long hops, in between hops, short in between, long in between, rollers, versus high bounders, versus when do you come, when do you stay back, versus a drop step. So you can completely overwhelm somebody, like what I just said right there, like somebody's head might be spinning. But within the realm of drills and practice, and the simple to complex formula, starting very easy, master, add, and then the predictable versus unpredictable phase. So things that are very simple and very predictable are much easier to master. Then you start moving up that graph of unpredictability and complex. The drills get more challenging, and so as a player's ready to handle more, we give them more, and then before it's all said and done, they master those skills. You're working on their footwork, not just in practice, but jumping rope, forwards, backwards, eyes open, eyes closed, to music for speed. You're doing wall ball drills, that are challenging the hands and the eyes. You're juggling, you're just doing all these different pieces that are just improving your overall athleticism. And a lot of times those things will start to just find themselves into your game without you even realizing it. When you have better feet, your feet work better. I mean, it's just logical. When you have rhythm, when you know how to dance, it's jumping rope is very, very much a repeated pattern of movement, which is rhythm. So, and then if you can do that to the rhythm of, say, Latin dance music, now we're talking, and that stuff just starts to carry. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but as a parent or a coach, giving players the freedom to fail, because as well as I do, tension is the enemy. So of elite infielders, tension is 100% the enemy. So you have to, the more freedom you can give people, and I'm not talking about to be Mr. Cool Guy, freedom to be Mr. Cool Guy, freedom to make easy plays hard. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the freedom to make physical mistakes and understand that major league infielders are going to make 15, 18 errors a year, and they're the best 30 on the entire walking the face of the earth. So don't expect little Johnny over here to not make some errors. If he's trying, he's working, he's putting in his work before, after practice, he's preparing, has a process, and he's going to make a physical mistake once in a while. And as a coach, when you say it and you actually live it, I think your players respond a whole lot better to pressure scenarios because they know you have their back.
Right, and I love how you broke it down, especially a couple of things that you mentioned with this stopwatch. I think that's really important because when we practice, when we do drills, we don't have any pressure. We don't have to worry about runner getting down the line. But as soon as you gotta put a stopwatch on, like, kids start to do stuff different. Right. So they don't trust what you've been working on, and obviously when you see a kid getting down the line, they panic a little bit. So I love that drill. I do that with my kids too, and I think it's pretty helpful. And then the other thing that you said about the routine and ground balls, I remember Omar Vizquel. I remember his interviews. Somebody asked him, "What's the hardest play to make?" He's like, "The routine ones, because everyone expects you to make them." And so I thought it was pretty interesting because the tough plays, if you miss it, the coach is gonna be like, "Well, good try." But if you make the play, phenomenal play. But when you miss that ball right at you, that's when that's really, I think that's what, to me, what makes great infielders, just making the routine plays.
Yep.
But now, how important is throwing for infielders? Because I know we spend a lot of times on fielding, but I think sometimes we forget about the throwing part.
I've been calling it for years the most important 20 minutes of practice, and I'm talking about specifically your catch play routine.
Mm-hmm.
So your catch play routine, to me is the most important part of practice. And most people treat it as a warm up to go practice, where literally your catch play. I have so many, stories, and one of my favorite in a nutshell is Adam Wainwright. And I know Adam, and I've interviewed Adam like you on podcasts, and I actually have sat down and ate with him face to face. So where I coached in high school in Georgia is where he graduated from. So we have and he still lives down there. So he'd work out with us and stuff. But his story is simply this: he was struggling. I don't want to take 20 minutes to talk about the whole thing, but basically when he got to a point in his career where he had to make a change, his physical ability was not enough to carry him anymore. And mentally he had to get tougher. But the first thing was he got left off the playoff roster when he got traded from the Braves to the Cardinals after that first year. And he's back in Georgia. His teammates are playing on TV in the playoffs, and, he's doing some soul searching, and he basically made a commitment from that point on, Moy, to basically treat every single thing that he did, including his flat grounds, including his catch play. Every throw he made was literally going to be with the intent that it was the last pitch of the World Series. That was going to be the focus. Aim small, miss small, to targets with freedom, and, just treating it with that type of seriousness. And very few people can do that. As the story would go, it's a storybook that only Adam can write. That next year he shows up at spring training, and literally the pitching coach is like, "There's something different about you," before he even stepped on the mound. Has a tremendous spring training. His role changes during the regular season. Before the season's over, he's now the closer for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he closes out each round of the playoffs, including the last pitch of the World Series that next year. And when La Russa called him in, he's like, "How'd you do it?" And he's like, "I've literally been closing out the last pitch of the World Series since last year in the offseason. Everything that I did was that type of intent." Now, that's a great story. And when I tell the whole thing, it'll give you chills, but that's like literally the cliff notes. And, very few people can maintain that type of intent. But as a coach, you should be down there with your infielders or your players when they're playing catch. They should know the how and the why to the drills. The drills should be executed correctly, but with freedom. They should be simple to complex. They should start off very easy and repeatable. And then you start challenging, the body, even in your catch play, with movement, with, blind throws, and, all different arm slots and on the move. And, you do that 20 minutes a day on top of increasing your arm strength, shortening your arm stroke. Amazing things happen over time. I mean, and if you can't throw, you can't play. I don't care how good of a fielder you are. And, truth of the matter is, if you can't repeat, even with arm strength, you're going to end up you're going to end up on the right side of the infield at second or in the outfield eventually.
Right.
So, at the higher levels, third base play a lot deeper. Of course, shortstops are very deep. And most people don't understand that 5-6 hole backhand, that's where the clay meets the grass, Moy, is almost 50 yards to first base. It's 150 feet. Okay. So it's literally almost a 50 yard. And I tell the guys all the time, 50-yard pass in football, is that a bomb? Yeah, it's a bomb. Well, you still got your 4.3 average, 4.2 average. Those are average. Trey Turner, 3.6, 3.7, getting down the line. You're fielding a backhand. The ball travels 100 feet at half a second. I think it's 90 miles an hour. It might be 100. I can't remember. And, you're fielding the ball on that back edge, and you got to throw it 150 feet. Now that's, of course, one of those plays that you were talking about. That's not the routine. But, ultimately, your best players make a fair percentage or have a shot to make those plays. And, if you're creating unnecessary length, it's forcing you to take extra steps, or you're rushing throws. You can't repeat your release point, and balls are flying on you, taking off. And, the big field exposes, right? So when you're young, you can get away with stuff. You get older, that 90-foot field really exposes those weaknesses.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, because when they're little, they can get away with overpowering, but as they get older, obviously, it gets a little bit tougher. And I think one of the things that I tell my infielders, I don't know what you normally tell your infielders, but besides, getting ready when you're playing catch is in between innings. I feel like a lot of times, like kids just, you got the first baseman rolling the ball to the shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, and they're just lobbing it back to the first base. And then here comes the runner, the play happens, and then they can't even make the play because they'll throw it away. They panic. They haven't worked on it. They got wind. You got to be able to play with different environments. So,
no, that's a great point. I'll piggyback on that for a second. I mean, yes, if you don't respect your in between inning ground balls, you're going to create bad habits.
Right.
Not just throwing bad habits, but fielding bad habits. And do you have to max effort your throws across the infield? Of course not. And I know you're saying the same thing as I am. We're not talking, also depending on how many games you play, what level you're at. Are you
Right.
a high school kid playing 3 games a week? Are you also the starting pitcher and shortstop? Well, you might have to take care of your own, you might have to do things a little bit different in that regard. But in my opinion, your footwork, your approach, at least, getting into your position to throw your launch, that should be there. But for most guys, exactly what you said. I mean, you need to make some throws with some intent, just like Adam Wainwright was talking about with pitching, we have to do in the infield play. And it's not just staying in the same spot every single time at shortstop or second base while the ball's being thrown to us from the first baseman. And you're just, basically doing the same. It's not just getting getting loose. That's part of it, but it's really preparing yourself to make plays. And so that, have the first baseman move you glove side, backhand, let you come get one. Maybe you turn 2 every other inning. I mean, I've seen different things done there, especially at the younger ages where they don't get a chance to work on that stuff that much, and they don't have enough practices and stuff. So, again, you have to assess where you're at, but overall, generally speaking, what you're saying is on the money. You need to treat your in-between inning ground balls with a very serious intent.
Right. Now, when it comes to positioning yourself as an infielder, how important is that?
Well, I think that's a baseball IQ situational awareness type thing. Most players have no feel for the game anymore. They don't know how to read swings. They don't know tendencies. Of course, when you get older into high school, you might have scouting reports on players. They're, hook and pull guy. If you get to watch them take BP before the game, again, older ages, you can really start to see some tendencies in hitters. I think, if you have that information, whether it's before the game or you've seen now this guy have 3 at bats and he's coming up for his 4th at bat, you should have a feel, for, does his bat lag? Is he going to be a guy that's going to inside out a ball? Is he going to be a guy that hook and pulls? And that's going to impact my positioning if the coach is not pre-positioning me based on scouting reports. Then you also got to take into consideration pitch. You got to know the pitch that's being thrown. I mean, obviously off-speed pitches are going to be pulled more. So, your element of anticipation, and to me, you can even creep in the direction of probable contact if there's an advantage to creeping in the direction of probable contact, which means you're not doing it early where it can be, where you're giving away the pitch. It's literally happening during your pre-pitch, during your creep, whatever you want to call it. You're not doing it every time either. So it's not like the hitter can sit there and watch Mongero at shortstop. And one time I'm, my first step with my right is just a little bit more to my right to gain a little ground because we got an off-speed pitch being thrown, or to my first steps with my left. Oh, now they're, if I don't even start my creep to the pitcher's knee drops. So there's no way a good hitter can be watching me and trying to see the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand at the high level and make some sort of assessment that I'm tipping a pitch, because it's not consistent either. If there's no advantage to going either way, I'm going to stay neutral based on my primary position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. When do you normally recommend, creeping one way or the other, or try to take away a little bit more of the gap this way? But you're saying when the knee goes down,
that's when we start our prep
pre-pitch.
Yeah, the pre-pitch. Typically, I mean, everybody's a little different, but that's the general rule of thumb. Pitchers need descend as soon as the knee descends. That's pretty good timing usually for, depending on what your prep is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your prep takes a little bit longer, or you like to be a little slower with it, you may start it a little earlier, you know. And
Right.
then you got to be able to adjust to the pitcher. You mentioned dancing with the ball. You got to dance with the pitcher. He does a slide step. I mean, you got to know what your pitcher's arsenal is, his delivery times, and all that stuff just starts to become instinctual. You don't
Right.
even have to think about it, you know. But you need to get your prep step, every fungo that's hit, every ball that's rolled to you, you know, whenever possible. You need to implement that element, because most guys are horrible about it, or they don't even know what they're doing. They don't repeat, you know, they're not on time. There's all sorts of issues, flaws that are going on all over the place.
Right. Right. Now, when it comes to, like, let's say a kid makes an error, how do we bounce back from that? Especially when it's early in the game, you know, we make an error, now we let that affect the rest of the game. So, what would be your recommendation to be able to bounce back from it?
Well, I mean, we talked about that. You know, you have to learn to apply the skill of letting go, having a short memory. You know, there's going to be about 15 seconds to 20 seconds in between every single pitch, and the mind wanders. So when you make a mistake, the tendency is that you know, the fear of the past, what just happened, starts to, you know, play with our mind. Like, you know, we don't want to make another mistake, or we get worried about the future. Like, you know, I don't want to make a mistake next. Don't hit it to me. You know, I don't want the ball. You know, don't hit it to my backhand, especially
Right.
not with the game on the line or whatever. So things, you know, tension can creep in, fear can creep in our mind. We have to have ways to block and replace. Positive self-talk, of course, which I thought was total garbage when I first learned it, you know, 35 years ago, is real, because we tend to be negative with ourselves. But we help people understand the mind and how it works and what it means to be on time. Like, the only time that matters is now, like
Mm-hmm.
this pitch. And you literally got to find ways to let go of the past. So, you know, we have ways with, you know, that a lot of professional players use with, you know, focal points, breathing, trigger phrases, trigger words, you know, positive self-talk, and just have, again, freedom. Like, you know, if I'm the head coach and a player makes a mistake, and I, you know, I know he's a player and he's put in the time, he has a great process, he's a good player, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm going to be all about him when he comes in. You know, if I see he's wearing it a little bit with his body language, hey man, let it go. You know, you're cool. You know, you're our man. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Make plays. You know, you're going to make mistakes. You know, big leaguers make 15 to 18 to 20 a year, you know, at shortstop.
Right.
So, you know, are you in the big leagues? No. Okay. Well, you're going to make some mistakes, you know. And when you give people freedom like that, a little pat on the butt and go about their way, it's amazing what it can do. So, but if if you're over there like, oh, you know, kicking dirt as a coach or parent, you know, and you show all that tension, and well, they're probably going to carry that with them a little bit longer, even though maybe you've taught them how to let it go. I mean, there is a human element, boy, to all of this. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care whether you're a big leaguer or, you know, you're a high school player or under. Everybody, you know, can feel tension. You watch professionals in the playoffs; they typically make a higher percentage of mistakes than they do during the regular season, and they're the best in the world,
Right.
you know, because they're human beings. And you know, they're great at managing pressure, and of course they have tremendous confidence from years of being successful, but they're still human beings. So,
Yeah.
you know, you teach how, and then you have to apply it. So when you're doing drills, you know, and a mistake happens, that's when you address it, like right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, like, so what, don't care. Like, I literally want to hear you say, so what, don't care. You know, you make a mistake, you're around, so what, don't care. So what, now what? That's in the past. What am I going to do right now? This pitch, this pitch, this pitch. So, you
Right.
know, whether you're taking fungos or doing a drill or, you know, whatever you're doing, and you make a mistake, you make a bad throw, you know, in your mind, ultimately that's where it's going to be said. But the only way I know you're thinking it is if you verbalize it. And I want to literally hear you say, so what, don't care.
Right.
And, you know, that's something I picked up from Nate on that one. Really, really, you know, we all think there's secret sauce, and a lot of it is just simple stuff that's applied. You truly have to apply, and you've got to teach it, and then you got to put it in. Most people just like teach things, if they even teach things, and then they kind of expect it to show up in the game. So you
Right.
got to find ways to apply the mental side of the game to everything that's going on,
Right.
or as much as possible. And that's the only way you get better at it. It's the mind gym, right? We go to the physical gym to improve our physical tools, but we just expect the mind game to show up, the mental game to show up, and you got to work at it. Got to teach it, got to work at it.
Right. And I love what you said when you were saying about, you got some great coaches that will help you. And I try my best to really work with kids that, as soon as they miss it, like I want them to learn how to find a way to reset. But then you also have the coaches that, put a lot of attention just because I coach, a couple of teams, 10U and 11U, and that's where you see it the most. You got parents that were there when they missed the ball, or coaches catch the ball, like the kids trying to actually miss the ball. You know what I mean? So like
Right.
I get a little frustrated. I'm like, why don't you go out there and do it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
We call that a bounce back, right? So you're talking about the bounce back. The process is bouncing back from an error, getting the process of getting refocused so that you can be your best right now and have a better chance to make this next play that's about to come at you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep you here too long. I just got a couple more questions there.
Sure.
I know you got a pretty busy day. So, but what would be one advice that you give to someone that's trying to make it to the next level, whether it's college or professional baseball?
I would tell them that they have to create a process that is doable. You got to work harder, but you got to work smarter. So you need to do some serious self-assessing as to what your strengths and weaknesses are on your 5 physical tools, as well as your mental tools. Once you address your weaknesses, we call it concentrated learning. So if I struggle with do or die backhand, that needs to become a significant priority for me to eliminate that weakness. So instead of just doing random work, we're really going to target that. Maybe every single drill, we're going to use the backhand lane, as our focus 80% of the time, as well as any kind of ground balls, whether they're fungos or out of a machine or whatever. But I also think your daily plan, the trap for the real hard workers, the guys that care, is to do too much. Okay. They do too much. They feel like they have to do it all every day. And you literally have to find ways to plan out your week where you're working on your 5 physical tools. They're spread out, certain tools, certain days. What am I actually working? So if it's a run tool day and a throw tool day, what exactly am I doing on those tools? Is today long toss? Is today, throwing drills? Whatever. Same thing with the run tool. So I think you really have to, target it. It's very specific. It's not random. Like, hey, today I feel like taking some ground balls. If you're truly, Moy, if you're an elite of the elite, dude, you can out physical for a long time, but sooner or later you're going to meet your match. Whether it's in college or professionally, people are going to be as physically tooled as you are. And at that point, if you don't have a process to fall back on, you're probably going to crash and burn. But guys that know how to work, and they know how to work smarter, and they have processes, and it's not just feel good stuff. I think a lot of the guys fall into traps of just doing things that they're already good at. Like I'm 56 years old right now. And I could do short hop drills pretty much blindfolded, not make a mistake. I mean, I never work at them. So, I mean, if that's all you're doing is a few, short hop drills, and, you're never challenging yourself, your eyes and your hands, game speed, game challenge. So you have an element of feel good, you have an element of challenge. Certain days, maybe you do certain things that feel good. The next time, maybe you're doing challenge drills for that tool, whatever that tool is, physical tool, whether it's hitting, fielding, throwing, running, So, that all comes back to plan. So I'm saying a lot, but ultimately you have to plan your work your plan, and you have to work smart. And, I think my son Tabor, he was guilty, and me as a player was guilty. Again, I was that guy on the other end of the spectrum that wanted to do everything possible to help myself be successful. And you just eventually become like, you wear yourself out because you're just trying to do everything.
Right.
So, you got to get your lifting in, right? You got to eat well. You got to get some sleep. You got to, get your tools taken care of during the week. And if you have a good process, chances are the results are going to follow, so you got to take care of business.
No, I love that. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up with just a few fun questions here, and I promise I'll let you go.
Okay, no worries.
So, what would be if you have a player, well, I guess out of all the players that you've worked with, what's the one guy that you've enjoyed working with the most? You don't have to say their name, but like just why you enjoy working with him the most.
I'll say Andrew Smith. Andrew Smith was a player that I coached on one of the teams that went to the state championship that I coached in Georgia. And Andrew was the reason why he was so much fun to coach is because he had a lot of fun in his preparation. So coming to the park every day was fun for him. He enjoyed the process. You know, everything was like his favorite song, meaning that, you know, when your favorite song comes on, you don't want it to end. You're not rushing it to the end for the next song. You want to enjoy the song. And he was a worker. He was talented. He wasn't physically big, but he was super talented, 3-sport athlete in high school, ended up playing Division I football at about 5'8", 170. That should tell you about his athleticism. Just a pure joy to be around, ultimate competitor, infectious as a teammate, you know, just a joy. Like when Andrew was there, everybody was better. And and I've had many of those, you know, and he's the one that comes to mind.
What about your least favorite player? Again, you don't have to say names.
No, I'm not. I definitely would not throw anybody under the bus here. I haven't had really that many least favorite players. To me, the least favorite guys are the guys that are me guys. You know, I call them jelly beans. They're you know, hard on the outside but soft on the inside. They come across as having it all together, and they appear to when things are going their way or the team's way. But as soon as the adversity really heats up, they become, you know, soft and they crumble. And it's all about themselves. Like the team could be doing great, they're doing poorly, you know, they're over there kicking rocks. Guys that don't like to work. On top of that, they don't understand the process. Baseball is the most highly skilled game on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. And you know, we already know about the failure rates with hitting, you know, and what's considered successful there. And you bring home a 30 on your test and see if your parents are going to stick that one up on the refrigerator, right? As something they're proud of. But, you know, that's a great hitter. So it just, the processes are so difficult and the amount of time. So the guys that I, you know, are least favorite to coach, or everything's a joke kind of guy too, you know, like everything's a joke. They're not locked in. They don't appreciate the finer points of the game. You know, there's a time and a place to cut up and, you know, have fun. And, you know, when I say have fun, I mean like be silly. But to me, the work was fun, you know, and the guys that like to work and take it serious and want to get better, those are the guys I want to coach.
Now, the last two here, out of all the years that you've coached, like who's the one coach that you say you would look up to? Like you're like, man, that's, you know, you really look up to that coach. You really learn from him, and why?
Two of them, but I'll just talk about one of them. Ray Tanner. Ray was the head coach of the University of South Carolina when they won back-to-back national championships, and they played for a third Division I. He was, you know, the Gamecocks were unbelievable, and he got out of coaching. He's now the athletic director for the University of South Carolina. But I learned a lot from Ray when I was playing at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. Ray was the head coach of NC State, North Carolina State at that time. And, you know, one of the greatest lessons I've taken from Ray is this. And, you know, apparently early on in his career in college coaching, really probably through the first half of his career, a little bit militant, a little bit too many rules. Players walked on eggshells around him because he was nitpicking every little thing. And the tension was definitely palatable, you know. And he had a mentor tell him that, you know, you're a great coach, but until you loosen up, your players aren't going to reach their full potential. Your teams are not going to reach their full potential. And that's exactly what was happening at NC State. when he went to South Carolina is when he really started applying this, and when we say loosen up, we're not talking about anything goes, right? You still have standards, but the rules were way less. And, the freedom to play with, reckless abandon was there. And his teams at South Carolina, of course, win back-to-back national champions, play for a national championship the third year, losing in the College World Series. I mean, they almost did it 3 times in a row. Wow. And, Ray, I got to know him, and he shared those stories with me. And, it impacted me significantly in my approach as a high school coach. And in fact, when I started applying the same thing, which is easier said than done, my team started having much more success on the back end of a season into the playoffs. So I'll say Ray Tanner.
Awesome. What about your biggest pet peeve as a coach?
I got a couple of them. What's the biggest? Let's see. What would I say? Wearing sunglasses when the sun's not out. That's probably my biggest pet peeve. Like, are you just trying to be cool, daddy? Because are you going to wear these sunglasses at night? Because they're called sunglasses. They're supposed to help you see when it's sunny. Now I get it. Some are prescription. Okay. I get it.
Right.
But they probably shouldn't be tinted black when it's dark out. Because I have a pair of sunglasses that are prescription. I don't wear them at night when I'm driving. I have regular glasses for that. Yeah. But so I would say, I think people so that kind of ties into all of it. I just think all of the stuff, I'm all about blue collar. I don't mind true eye black, but why do we got to go put it down our neck and, side of our bodies?
Right.
Wear the eye black. If you want to go down one, okay. I can bend on that one, just like, 10 fighting necklaces back when the fighting necklaces were, remember those necklaces everybody wore that they were in 10 years ago. You got 10 of those on, sunglasses, you got every little decorative thing known to mankind.
Right.
To me, there's a purpose. Am I going to wear guards at the plate? I would now. I would now. I've seen people's seasons come to an end at the collegiate level because they took one in the back of the elbow or, off the hand or, the rules allow. I think there's functionality to the equipment, but you get my point. When it's just over the top. Yeah. That's a pet peeve of mine. Let's play the game. Let's play the game. Let's get noticed because we're playing the game in the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
Not because of the stuff.
Right.
That's awesome. Man, I really appreciate you for your time. This is great information. I know I'm sure the players and coaches and parents out there will benefit from this. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'm gonna post Trent's links here of Facebook, Instagram. I'll also post a link to your website. So if you guys would like access to his online program, I highly recommend it. And as always, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and remember, keep it Moy Style.
Hey guys, Moy Style Baseball here. If you're interested in having me come out to your city for a fielding camp or a hitting camp, or if you're in the Oklahoma area and you're looking for private lessons or group lessons, you can shoot me a text at 251-509-3815. You can also email me at moystyle33@gmail.com. Keep it Moy Style.